Okay, this is Unit 4, Chapter 2, Lesson 2. In this lesson, we will talk about simplifying, multiplying, and dividing fractions. So let's take a look at simplifying fractions. Simplifying fractions is a very useful tool for when working with fractions because it allows us to change fractions form without changing its value. So it's a way of creating equivalent fractions. So if you remember back to past lessons where we looked at taking a fraction, for example, like a half, and raising it to higher terms. So we would multiply both the top and bottom by a common number value. And when we do that, we create an equivalent fraction, such as 2/4. Well, think of simplifying as working backwards. So whereas when we raise a fraction to higher terms, we are multiplying by 2 or working with a multiple, the reverse would be factoring. So if we're simplifying, we are factoring that fraction. So remember, multiples or multiplying, the opposite or the inverse of that would be to factor. Okay, so simplifying helps with writing answers in simplest form. It will also help with combining or finding the difference between two fractions. So that's why we need this tool. So let's look at the steps for simplifying fractions. Number 1. You have to factor the numerator and denominator. Think of prime factorization. We're using prime factorization in order to do that. Some of you may remember something called a factor tree from grade school. So I'll just do an example here of a factor tree. So if we have 6, which is a composite number, we would break it down into its prime factors. So 6 we know is produced from 2 times 3. 2 and 3 are prime factors. 2 cannot break down anymore, neither can 3. Therefore, this is the prime factorization for 6. So that's just a little review. So we're going to do the same thing to help us, or use that same skill to help us simplify fractions. Once we do the prime factorization, we're going to cross out any common factors. So our first example here, we have 12 over 42. Well, 12 we know breaks into 6 times 2. And I'm just going to rewrite it so that it'll be bigger. And we know 42 breaks into 6 times 7. Now, truthfully here, because you see the 6 over the 6, you could just cross these out. But just so, in case there's different types of problems, we'll just continue to break it down into its prime factors. So we know 6 is 2 times 3, and then we'll bring the 2, so 6 times 2, which is 12 still. And then we know 6 here breaks into 2 times 3, and then with the 7 we'll make 42. The 2 and the 3 cancel out, reducing this fraction to 2 over 7. There is a useful video here that you can watch in order to help you simplify fractions as well. So as we scroll down, you have 4 problems to try. I will demonstrate the first one, and then you'll solve the other 3. So let's look at 6 over 21. So right away I know 6 breaks into 2 times 3. Now 21 breaks into 3 times 7. The common factor between the numerator and denominator is 3, so I cross the 3's out. I am left with 2 over 7. So this fraction simplifies to 2 over 7. You can always check your work by doing the opposite. So taking your simplified fraction or your base fraction and multiplying it by the number that you canceled out. So if I multiply it by 3 over 3, which is creating an equivalent fraction, I get 6 over 21. So now I know my solution is correct. Now you try the other 3. Okay, I'm going to scroll down. We're going to go into multiplying fractions. There are 3 steps to multiplying fractions. Step 1, you're going to multiply the numerators. Step 2, multiply your denominators. And step 3, you will simplify your product. So let's look at example A. We have 2/3 times 4/5. Well, 2 times 4, which is the top, the numerator, gives me 8. The denominator, 3 times 5, is 15. 8 over 15 does not reduce, so we say this is already in simplest form. You will not always need to simplify. Let's look at example B. We have 3/4 times 2/6. So once again, multiply the numerators. 3 times 2 gives me 6. Denominators, 4 times 6 is 24. Now, this fraction will reduce. So we break 6 into 2 times 3, and we break 24 down. So 24 is 8 times 3. I know 8 breaks into 2 times 2 times 2, and then I brought my 3. Now to see what factors we have in common and cancel them out, this 2 with this 2 and this 3 with this 3. Notice how nothing's left at the top. When that happens, you have to use 1 as a placeholder. So 1, and on the bottom we have 2 times 2, which is 4. So this fraction reduces to 1/4. If you are multiplying mixed numbers, it follows the same steps. The only difference is that you have to first change your mixed numbers into improper fractions, as you learned in the previous lesson. So for example, let's see here. If I have 2 1/3 times 1 1/2, I would first change these into improper fractions. So remember, you do that by taking your denominator times the whole number and then adding it to your numerator. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7 over 3. The second one, 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3 over 2. Then I multiply. Following the same steps as above, I multiply the numerator. 7 times 3 is 21. Then multiply the denominators. 3 times 2 is 6. Your next step should be to simplify. So 21 breaks into 3 times 7, and 6 breaks into 3 times 2. Notice that the common factor is 3, so cross them out, and your fraction reduces to 7 over 2. Now that my fraction is simplified, I notice that it is an improper fraction. So I need to change this improper fraction into a mixed number in order to have it in simplest form. So remember, in order to do that, you can use lone division. So 2 into 7, I know it goes 3 times, creating 6. I have a remainder of 1, so that would be 2 and 1 over 2, 2 1/2. Okay. Now let's scroll down and look at the example problems. I will do one for you and you will finish the others. This first one, 3 times 2 is 6, 5 times 4 is 20. 2 times 3 is how 6 breaks. 20 is 2 times 2 times 5, which is 4 times 5. 2's cancel, I'm left with 3 over 10. You can now complete the other problems and then make sure you check in with your teacher. Now let's go into dividing fractions. When we're dividing fractions, we're going to write the reciprocal or the flip of the divisor. Then we're going to multiply the fractions and simplify the product. So looking at example A, where we have 7/8 divided by 2/3. So now, 7/8, after I write the division problem, I need to look at the divisor, which is 2/3. I need to find the reciprocal or the flip of that divisor. So 7/8, now instead of division it will be times, and the reciprocal or flip is 3/2. Then we multiply. 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 2 is 16. Now we simplify. So let's break this down. 3 times 7, this is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. This will not simplify. Since this will not simplify, then we need to look at it and make sure it's not an improper fraction. Well, it is. The top is heavier than the bottom. So now we need to think, how many times will 16 go into 21? So you can do this as a lone division problem over 21, into 21, or you can draw it out, which I'll show you that next. So 16 goes into 21 one time. So now let's subtract 16. We'll have 5 left over. So then we take that remainder and we put it over the denominator. So that's why we have 1 and 5/16. Drawing it out, just think 16 makes a whole. So that means we have 16 out of 16. And then we have 5 out of another whole. Check 16 plus 5. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 out of 16. Okay? So that's how you can visually see it. Okay, scrolling down. When we're dividing mixed numbers, it's the same steps, but you have to convert them to improper fractions first. So example A here. Notice we did 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 1 is 7. And we have 7/3. Then we did 3 times 5, which is 15, plus 2, which is 17/3. Okay. Now when we divide, we simply multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor. So we flip that 17/3, make it 3/17. We get 21/51 when we multiply. Then you need to simplify your answer, your solution. So we break it into its prime factors, both the numerator and denominator. Notice they have a 3 in common, and it reduces to 7/17. For the next portion, I will do one for you, and then you will complete it. So 1/2, this is the divisor, so 1/2 times 3/2, the reciprocal, that will give me 3/4. This will not simplify. So that is the final answer. You need to complete the other 3. Now, completion of this lesson, make sure you do the classwork on the following page numbers. Pay attention to the numbers that you have to complete and the exercises as well. There's also online practice if you need it. This is the completion of this lesson. So we are now done with Unit 4, Chapter 2, Lesson 2, Simplifying, Multiplying, and Dividing Fractions. If you have any further questions, feel free to look at any videos that are linked throughout the lesson. Hold on just a second here. And then there's also a video here that you can watch. And that will give you some helpful information on how to proceed through the problems. You can also ask your teacher for help. Thank you.